Well, thank you, everybody, for being here today. My name is Jake Spurlock. I'm with WordPress VIP. And we've got a really fun session today where we want to talk about building accessible government-friendly websites with the U.S. web design system. I want to take a minute to introduce both of our panelists today. Doug, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Doug Axelrod from the Web Development Group, and we work with a lot of nonprofits and associations, but we also have some government clients as well. Whitehouse.gov was our premier WordPress client, and then we did a lot of campaign sites like COVID.gov, COVIDtest.gov as well that were built on the U.S. web design system.
Hi, I'm Andrew Cameron Zahn. I'm the founder and CEO of Vast Design and Development, and we also do a lot of nonprofits, government sites. Probably our biggest name drop site would be KamalaHarris.com for the campaign website, and previously we had built JoeBiden.com for the campaign that didn't materialize. Currently, we're working on a site for a Philadelphia-based arts organization called the Association for Public Art, and that's a really fun and interesting project, which I'll dive into a little bit soon.
Very cool. And then just a little bit of background for me. I work for WordPress VIP. I've been involved in the WordPress space for over 20 years now, which is kind of wild to think about. For a big chunk of time, I led our public sector team, and I've been a WordPress core contributor and done a lot of stuff in the government space. So it's really fun to be here today in Washington, D.C. So just to kind of tee up some fun questions here, what are some projects that you're happy about? Any fun things you've done recently? Something that you wanted to share? And specifically things you've done with USWDS, but any fun things to talk about?
My experience, as we were saying, with U.S. web design system is really based on standalone campaign sites. We actually haven't really done a lot of integration with it into WordPress. That's one of the areas that I'm kind of interested to hear your take on. But when we've been working on it, it's been very specific brands, so adapting a lot of the built-in tokens, using the same components, but just restyling them to match whatever brand or campaign guidelines are necessary. For instance, on the White House, that is a federal website. You would have expected it to be U.S. web design system, but across 3 administrations, we work with the 45th, 46th, and 47th administration, and none of them wanted to use U.S. web design system. So politics trumps policy in that case.
Zing, like the pun.
Yeah, that's super cool. So I would say in the last year, we've worked on, as far as, I'll talk about 2 sites, one that's live now and then one that we're working on currently. We did a site for Osceola County in Florida, and it was called Vote Osceola. And this was a government site. It's hosted on FedRAMP WPVIP hosting. And that was really great to work with the folks at VIP, of course. So on that site, Doug and I were talking about this before the chat, but we actually use the U.S. design system, the U.S. web design system, as sort of a basis for the components, including they wanted a mega menu. So what we did was we looked at the existing U.S. design system mega menu, and we actually then kind of riffed off of that and built a fresh, clean one. We didn't literally use the code, but we're building all of our sites, all of our custom Gutenberg sites, heavily with the assistance of AI and Claude. So feeding the U.S. design system components into our LLM and having it kind of evaluate, is this accessible? Is this a good starting point? And the answer was yes. So we use that. And then currently, we're working on a site called the Association for Public Art, which is an organization in Philadelphia, which manages all of the public artworks in Philadelphia. That site, we also have lots of components that are pulled from a design system that we designed in Figma, and we're using which I think you're going to ask about this later. But just to quickly mention it is there's a really cool thing that Figma just released called Figma Code Connect. And what that does is it actually connects your design system in Figma to the code layer, so you can semi kind of synchronize-ish the components, and so it's like a two-way kind of tube with the addition of Claude Code. So it's a really nice way of kind of using AI design systems and building in WordPress. But I think we're going to talk about that later, so I'm not going to get too much into that.
It's okay. I guess for those, I'm assuming a lot of generalized knowledge here about what US web design system is and how it works. Maybe we should just back up a little bit. Do you guys want to maybe tell the audience here a little bit what it is, what the purpose is, and where it was mandated and the purpose of that? Anybody want to tackle that?
Sure. I can tackle a little bit of that,
Yeah.
which is that it is, so it's a web design standard. It's a library of components that are designed to be accessible out of the box and reusable out of the box. So with those two goals in mind, it really accomplishes a baseline federal website right out of the box. It's just pick and choose components to build it. It even includes a build system that you can leverage, which really helps with the actual technical aspect of it.
And what are some of those components?
Everything. Well, the banner, the little USA. This is a federal government website. That's the main one that everyone would recognize. But then everything from mega menu,
header, mega menu, buttons, typography, fonts,
Colors,
error alert messages, drop downs, actually even cards, like suggested card layouts. And also what's nice about it is they released, actually, to go back to Figma, which is like a design software that we use a lot, is they actually released all the components in Figma, which we're actually currently using and kind of pulling from, and it's really nice to have that versus just seeing it rendered in a browser, to be able to really zoom in and look at on a granular level, the pixel differences and the button sizes, and be able to tweak that per client, like you were suggesting. Yeah.
So what does your day-to-day testing strategy look like? You mentioned earlier that you're using, like, taking one of those components, putting it into Claude, and testing for accessibility. Is there any other process or procedure that you use for accessibility specifically?
From our perspective, we don't often leverage US web design system in a lot of our private sector work. We've kind of built our own library called Wicket, which is a WDG proprietary framework that we use to build out the websites. It has the same goals as US web design system, where it's reusable, accessible components by default, but it's built directly as WordPress blocks. So we're really focused on WordPress enterprise clients, and for us, having a base theme and application that we can build off of and expand per client, having it built into WordPress from the start accomplishes the same goal, but kind of comes at it from a different angle. From our accessibility perspective, what we're working with is a whole full process view of accessibility. So everything from design. In design, we're evaluating color contrast, sizing of things, and then when we pull that into code and actually build it out, we're testing on a component-by-component basis, very similar to how the US web design system works. And then composing those into a full WordPress page, we're doing the audits pre-launch to make sure that we're matching accessibility guidelines, WCAG 2.2 at this point, AA, and then post-launch, doing audits. One of the things in federal government, you've got to do reoccurring Section 508 audits. Taking part in those audits and making sure that you're remediating on an ongoing basis is the main way that you make sure that content or other components that you're shipping in the meantime don't break the accessibility promise that was there in the first place.
I have a really interesting story about this. Recently, I had a client come to me. I won't say the name of the client, but it's a very well-known, like, Ivy League school in Philadelphia. And they,
who knows what it could be anything.
It could be Penn, but it could be anything.
Yeah.
But they came to me. I built a site for them many years ago, and they came to me recently, and they did an accessibility audit on their own site, and they said, "Hey, Andrew, is it possible to tweak a few things to make it a little more accessible?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I thought, okay, maybe this is a good chance to use my agents and my AI tools in Claude. So I did that. And within about 2 hours, and then I tested on Lighthouse, I was able to get a 100 accessibility score. But to get to that score, I had to also automate and go through every image and have alt text added to each image using basically...
Content's a big one.
Yeah, and then using like the AI, like basically like computer vision, it would read each image and basically write a semi-intelligent kind of... Now, that's not ideal. It's better to have a human do it and do it manually. But this was like an old client. I had to do it rapidly. And this was like a huge game changer. And so when I told a couple folks this yesterday, that I was able to reach like a 100 on Lighthouse, I mean, that's like shocking. You wouldn't be able to do that without the assistance of AI. Not to discount having humans test, which you also
can't do that in
to
2
do.
hours, right? Like
Yeah.
many hours of work.
Yeah.
That's true. But one of the things definitely to keep in mind with accessibility is, a Wave or a Lighthouse is only going to catch maybe half of the items that might be surfaced in an accessibility audit.
Sure.
You've got to do keyboard testing. You've got to do screen reader testing to make sure that all of the items are actually remediated. Automated testing only takes you most of the way. But again, good idea to use that as a good starting point, because that's a great way to quickly find and remediate a lot of issues.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I agree.
Tell me, one of the big things that I've been working on, and I see as like a real growth opportunity for us in the WordPress space, is going from USWDS as a concept to Gutenberg and WordPress as an actual like solution. So for those that aren't familiar, WordPress has a concept of blocks and page templates and different things like that. If you're thinking atomic design, everything from like molecules and like forming things together, which US web design does really well by itself, but the big difference is like, how do I actually put that in place? How do I actually use my CMS so that I don't have to have engineers behind the scenes touching every single page, but how do I like automate this process so that the accessibility standards are matched when I publish a new piece of content? I can update a home page without worrying about speed or worrying about different things like that. Yeah. What does the process look like for you guys to turn USWDS into something WordPress friendly for the end user? What does that look like?
Yeah. So a friend of mine actually did this. They built a Gutenberg theme with all of the US web design system elements. Mm-hmm. And that's you actually, so someone did this, and actually it's really great, and I think what it proves is that, it doesn't prove, that's the wrong word, but it shows that atomic, people use the word atomic. I still use the word modular. Like when I was in design school, we talked about modular design a lot, and I've been designing modular websites for a very long time. But then when Gutenberg came along, this is what it is. Gutenberg is basically a modular site builder, essentially. And this is what I tell my clients, because a lot of them won't fully understand the technology, but I have to explain, like, we're not going to hand over fixed page templates to you. We're going to be handing over modular blocks that are built with Gutenberg blocks. And so you can get as granular as you want with those elements. So you could pull in like a US design system button or a mega menu or whatever it is, but you could also have patterns of predefined modular elements in Gutenberg, which could be those design system elements. And so it's kind of the perfect pairing, actually. And then also when you add in, like, AI is now integrated into WordPress core, and you can kind of prompt and say, okay, build me a page with these types of elements or these types of cards or a hero or whatever it is. Now, like, you're off to the races, and clients are going to be able to quickly build out pages and websites without having to like ping us at 3 a.m. when they break the core site.
What about you, Doug?
Definitely, WordPress has that big advantage of being able to compose all of these blocks in any kind of way, shape, or fashion. That gives you a big advantage over what would natively come out of just stacking all of these components on top of each other. But that is exactly the reason that, from our perspective, we're working with that base wicket system so that we're able to compose kind of different layouts together, both in starter patterns for like whole pages, but also more modular patterns where you can build them into different sections of the page. But I think that WordPress port of the US web design system is actually a big game changer in how you design and build off of that system.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
No, definitely. I disagree.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think that there's a big opportunity. The whole point of the design standard is like, let's build something that works for everybody, right? Let's build something that we can have adaptable and composable, to your point. And then taking it one step further into like, let's have this be a WordPress native block solution, really makes it easy for the end user to like roll out and build stuff quickly. And then I think that the component that I think is the most important is like being able to assign your own design tokens and say, what works for me at White House is one thing, what works for me at NASA is another thing, what works for me at the VA is another thing, and just being able to press build and build to that standard using this universal design language is really powerful. So, and then having the accessibility and the speed and performance on top of that, all built in, is really powerful. So we haven't talked about it directly, but I think, how is AI changing things? Like, what's the difference now? And I mean, for me, the big title change was in December this year, where the 4.5 Sonnet release came out, and all of a sudden it was like, AI can write an episode of The Office, to AI can like one-shot an entire website build, and with Fable release yesterday, and I mean, everything is moving so quickly. But what's changed the most over the last 6-9 months for you, in your agency?
Other than not writing code anymore?
Yeah, other than not writing code anymore.
One of the biggest advantages with AI that we have found working with a lot of private sector clients, and actually including the White House, this has actually happened with the White House as well, clients are now able to communicate a more complete vision of what they're looking for right out of the gate. So even if they haven't implemented it in WordPress, even if they've just told AI to build it however AI was going to build it in Astro or some static site version of it, they can present a complete image, a complete spec of what they're looking for in a visual way that makes the back and forth between engineering and design and the client team a lot easier. So we call it vibe coding, of being able to build an application like that, but being able to communicate a vibe-coded app to an engineering team who can actually implement that in an accessible, performant, and secure way. That's the real game changer for us, is the ability to actually get that information directly from the client and not have to extract it from them.
Yeah, for me, I'm thinking back to, I would say, a year and a half ago, roughly, maybe 2 years ago, I don't know, when we were starting to really heavily use AI for coding. For me, it was a big game changer in being able to leverage LLMs like Claude or OpenAI, whatever, in building custom Gutenberg blocks. And the reason that it came at the perfect time for us was that moving away from the classic WordPress theme to a Gutenberg theme, or a Gutenberg core, it was it was a huge shift in how you have to think about building the sites, using React, JSX, whatever. So being able to implement this new code system, Gutenberg, which is not super clean and easy to use from a code point of view, it was a huge game changer to be able to implement all this stuff using AI. And I think fast forward, initially we were using it a lot kind of just to build one piece of one block at a time, and now it's so good, with the release of Fable and Opus and all this stuff, which are these are Anthropic models I'm talking about. These are enabling us to now whip up a Gutenberg block that's like an entire web application, basically. Like one of my clients this year needed like an interactive map built into their WordPress site. And I said to them, I don't know, I'm not sure if that's in the scope. And then, like 10 minutes later, it was done. And it was like I was, thinking, am I going to be out of business soon? Well, no, I'm not. But like it's extremely good. I mean, in building WordPress, anything. And I don't love the term vibe code, but sure, fine.
Well, and the more context you give it, the better the results tend to be. And I do feel like that's an area where the expertise still comes into play, is having that technical background to know and to prompt it how to tell it which dependencies to avoid, or which different methodologies of how it's going to build it out.
Yeah, definitely.
Being able to give that sort of additional context improves the result, so you get that one shot sort of effect to it. But one of the things that we do is ultimately, especially for big clients and government customers, being able to take accountability for that code. There's still a human in the loop on all of this. So
Absolutely.
While it's all being basically written at this point by AI, there is always a human level of review, not just in terms of looking at the code itself, but in actually testing it as well. And AI absolutely helps speed up a lot of the testing and a lot of the remediation of stuff, but being able to make sure that you're still accountable to it is key as well.
And I think that going back to your point about vibe code, or actually Doug made this point, a client handing you a vibe coded framework or some structure or something is really interesting, I guess. Can be annoying too, but is interesting. But I think that's the gap that we fill as agencies, which is going from someone that's non-technical vibe coding to actually building the real thing and making it accessible, making it load quickly, making it secure. We haven't talked about security really, but like also using AI for security testing and making sure that this is like a huge thing now with Fable being released. Making sure that we're building things that are even more secure than before is going to be critical.
One of the things that I found most powerful with all of the AI stuff recently is the output from like writing code is obviously incredibly powerful. But the big step that I use most often is actually the planning step. And if anybody's familiar or heard of compound engineering, it's a what do we call them? It's a plugin. But it's something you could add to Claude, basically a skill. That's what they're called. Sorry. Or agent. Yeah, agent or skill. So it's a skill that you can add to Claude or Copilot or ChatGPT, and basically adds a bunch of layered and looping mechanisms to your planning stage and your execution stage. So you can say, I need to build a embedded map inside of my WordPress thing. Here are some of the framework that I want to use, and it builds a plan. So if you use like /plan or something like that, it just goes 5 or 7 layers deeper, and then it does. It basically takes on a mantra of I need to do like adversarial testing. I need to do, thinking about like open source contracts, thinking about all of these things at the same time, and then executes. It puts that plan together, and then you can compound engineer and then have a bunch of sub-agents working on the same code in parallel to really build out a nice and refined solution, something that I found really powerful.
And I think that, Fable was just released a couple days ago, which is like the new model from Anthropic. But I'm pretty sure in my playing with it a couple days ago that it is doing that kind of by default. Yeah. That it's kind of checking itself more thoroughly, and it's looping through and saying, like, did I actually build this correctly? Yeah. And that's different, where it's not self-aware. That's not the right term, but it's more
not AGI.
It's more aware of what it is doing, of the context of itself, which is that's the thing that has always been kind of behind a little bit, I think.
So I think we're coming up on time here. I have one more question for you guys, and then if anybody else has any other questions, we could definitely take them. The last question is, if you could hand one tool or habit to a constrained government team just starting a USWDS implementation, what would that be?
For me, it'd be a habit. It would be assigning ownership for the build to, if it's a government client, to a core or to the actual end client. Having someone who's taken ownership and has a mandate to watch through the entire process is really the best way to ensure consistency and make sure that a design system is actually adhered to and that it's actually followed all the way through. It's with all of the AI, advancements and buzzwords and everything like that, it's easy to get lost in the sauce, as it were. But having someone who's truly watching over and owning the whole process is actually the most important way to impact the final delivery and final product.
Nice.
Okay, you're not going to like this answer. The answer is Claude. And the reason I say that is that I have used all of the LLMs for a couple years now. It is by far the best one for coding. And if you want to do everything, if it's just one tool, you're saying I'm only giving them one tool, that's the tool. And the reason is that we can do a lot of things with that one tool. And but if you don't have the person to take ownership of the project and to manage it and to understand the stuff, it's just going to be a big mess and it doesn't really help you. So I think your answer is actually really important, the human element. But I say that too because we assume that a lot of people are using AI the way we are, and I think that that's not necessarily happening. Yeah. I think a lot of people are using it to write a proposal response or to write
answer an RFP
or answer an RFP, which I do that, or a grocery list or a whatever. But I think using it, realizing that it can really do a humongous amount of the lift now is just if you're not using it, I think it's at this point a big mistake. Honestly,
this is a kind of a funny analogy, and I've shared this before in another place. But there was a guy in San Francisco. I live in the Bay Area, and they were interviewing this guy who used to steal catalytic converters, and he said, "I never realized an angle grinder could change my life," and that's how I feel about AI. Sometimes it's $100 a month, and you can do a lot there. So sorry, a bad analogy, but kind of my favorite. Sorry,
I'm kind of curious. I assume we have a lot of government representatives in the audience. Claude kind of got a bad rap, at least with the Department of War. I'm curious to know what the access is like in the government space to different AI models. Are you guys able to access something like a Claude, or are you limited to one of the on-prem or Gen AI? I know is one for...
Ladies and gentlemen, the afternoon sessions are about to begin. So please make your way to the main theatre for the afternoon sessions. And also, if you're attending the How to Harness Citizen Experience to Drive Better Government Roundtable, please make your way to the Roundtable room now. Thank you.
I didn't realize that God was attending our conference here.
Should we take any audience questions?
Yeah.
Was that the plan?
Any questions? I guess sounds like.
And
we
do they
need
need a
up.
mic? Should we give them a mic?
You want to stand up?
Oh, we got one back there. We can't hear you, so. We can't hear you. You work with USWDS?
Okay.
Oh, cool. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Great. Yes.
What is how can we improve the functionality of it? Do you see the open source layout, this one is maintained? Where do you see this project heading? So it is useful for your use cases.
Let's repeat the question too.
I think it was where do you see the project going? What are the improvements coming to USWDS? I think part of that. There's also this USWDS came out of a mandate, right, where it's all government websites need to be using USWDS. And then there's also at the same time the National Design Studio is also creating a new design library that's kind of been put out there, but not necessarily has it come to fruition or,
They've built some stuff.
They built some stuff, but yeah. So
I think it's a very fair question. I have no inside information on how it's continuing to develop, but I know that at its core, it is meant to be kind of a baseline. It is not meant to define everything that ever will be in the U.S. web design system, and I think there's always considered a latitude to build out and extend it for any particular use case. But I would say, if to your question about what the future of it is, I think it's still a very good starting place, if only for what Andrew was talking about earlier, which is point AI at it and tell it, I need to build this other sort of component. How can I leverage the core accessibility functionality that's built into the system right now? How can I use that to extend it to build new things? How can I use it to find a component that may already exist and I just couldn't find it in the documentation? AI can find that much quicker, and maybe that's the future of it. Is it's a good baseline knowledge base.
I think I think your question is what is there going to be an evolution of the U.S. design system, and what is that looking like? And I think the answer is that maybe it's not one that we can see. It's not a visual evolution. It's probably going to be, as these tools become more and more invisible, how do you maintain accessibility in that sense, right? If websites go away in the future, how do things, stay accessible? And I think that's the evolution is standards in future interfaces that are it's not a drop down, and it's not like a mega menu. It's something else. But I think that on the other side of that it's a core kind of framework to look at and build upon, and that's the strength of it, actually, is that maybe it's not innovating every day. And anyway, yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions?
Yes, I do have a question for you guys. So definitely heard all your great points on using AI, using Claude, and that's really great. I do that for my personal life, but then as a part of actual work for the government, obviously sometimes some of those tools aren't really available to us. So I'm wondering if you've worked on any projects where you had similar constraints, if you were able to get around that somehow. Was there any other sort of processes that you guys did, or was it sort of back to how it was before?
Is this because so the question, I'll repeat the question, right? Is how do you get around using AI tools if you cannot use them in your builds? And I
In government in general.
right, or in government in general. I think, well, the first thing I think of is that most of these tools, at least I'm almost certain Anthropic provides this, is you can actually purchase a separate, I believe, FedRAMP level of usage for it, so that the data is staying onshore. I believe we're not doing that, but you can. I believe you can, if you pay Anthropic more money, you can get this. But I think the answer is why wouldn't you be able to use it? And that just seems, I think that. I'm not sure what the answer is, actually.
Yeah, so I have a customer who they
I
definitely go home at night, put some prompts into their personal computer, copy some code over to another computer, and they were telling me that's their get around, and I was like, I think this is probably worse, right? Than
What are those data retention policies on their personal accounts?
Yeah. So that's a tough world. I think part of it is you do it the hard way, which was, the only way a couple years. Yeah,
Well, I saw a report this morning, or an article that predicted that within, I don't know who said this, someone within I guess within 2 years that all of these LLMs will become federalized or government affiliated or controlled in some way. And so if that happens, then that's the solution to your issue. is like, the government actually is running this stuff. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but
one of the earlier discussions today, GSA was talking about how they're starting to roll it out and how they're starting to measure it. I do wonder whether some of the hesitation is about some of the compliance aspects of it, and I wonder as those start to get resolved or as they start to figure out contracting for it, whether that opens up availability of more of this to hopefully more agencies.
Well, I think we're just about out of time here. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Doug,
much
for being here.
Thank you.
And hope everybody enjoys their conference.
really appreciate it.